So Mark, this is a plethora of 85, so much so that we've got
a big word for you, Bob. Say that again.
Plethora.
Plethora.
What was it? What movie is that? I think you keep using that word. I don't think it means what you mean it.
Well, honestly, the cool part is I love 85 Saleens, and the PAS collection actually has 6 total. So we've got one that's getting some mechanical work done to it in Ohio. We've got another one here, and we just ran out of room, so we got 4 of them out.
Yeah, that's what I was exactly what I was saying. It's like
we
we're
took a
out
little
of
bit
room.
of time trying to figure out how to configure these because it wasn't easy.
So what's cool about these is you've got early cars, mid cars, late cars, and with the early cars, Steve was involved like one-on-one with the cars.
Well, there was no real company. It was Steve and some buddies, and they were building some cars.
Yeah.
And that's this particular car. What's really neat about some of the early cars is that Steve actually will sit down with you and he remembers the story of actually putting the car together.
Yeah.
And then he personally drove the car to the dealership to deliver it and everything else. And I had some time talking to him a couple years ago in the race trailer, and he was telling stories about the early cars, and he said, we had no idea this was going to take off and become anything. And he said, you know, we would hand deliver the cars to the dealerships and then hope they'd give us another order. And we're lucky enough in the PAS collection to have the first production 85 Saleen made, and that's this car.
And that's a very unique car because that early ones are very similar to the 384s.
Well, this is actually the 4th car built, so
True.
You know, it's
might as well be.
Yeah, it might as well be an 84.
84.
He had finally figured out some of the different stuff with the cars in what he wanted to do in 85, but the 84 carryover parts were the air dam, and then also people sometimes refer to you hear somebody call a big wing car, and this car's got the big wing on it. And honestly, the wing looks like it was not meant to fit the car, because it really wasn't.
It wasn't. I've heard stories of it. It was actually a Trans Am wing that was
modified to make fit. But the biggest problem with the big wing car, but the coolest thing about it is you can't see anything out of the back window because it sits up so high.
Yeah.
And I've got an 85 big wing car that was later changed to an earlier wing. The stories that we were told, Steve told us, was if somebody complained, then you would bring your big wing car back and they'd finally do the same wing that's on the rest of these cars and replace it. And it's a lot easier to see out of the car. But what do they say? The Italian mantra, it doesn't matter what's behind you, it's what's in front of you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is really a neat car. This car was owned by a gentleman by the name of Alan Bolte, who was very well known in the Shelby circles also. And he was the original owner of this car. And I have tons of notes where this car was built, things he liked, things he didn't like. And we got it from a friend of ours who was a collector that had some really neat cars, and we were able to get the car from him.
Yeah, that car stands out from the 3, mainly because there's differences in decals. Now I know the 84s, I believe, were painted lower stripes, but by this car, I think they are actually decals.
This car, I believe, are decals. The other big thing is the racecraft suspension. All the individual letters are hand cut out, and then the later cars, they actually had a decal.
And then the Saleen Mustang on the windshield is
right. There's a border behind it.
Yep.
For the earlier cars, and the later cars, it was just a regular cut decal.
Yeah. And it's as you could say, the early, mid, late, as I said earlier, in this as a progression of it becoming more than just a small business or hobby. It's turning into a full-blown production type facility.
Correct.
They moved in 85, mid 85, to a bigger facility.
Well, I think that Steve's buddies, their wives were kicking them out of the houses as they were building stuff. The old famous alarm story that Steve's told us a couple of times about the alarm constantly going off. They were trying to put in the car, and one of the guys' wives came out and said, if that goes off one more time, you guys are basically done.
It was very late in the night.
Very late in the night. But the other kind of neat thing about the cars, the early cars, they all have headlight covers. And the early cars like this had Velcro headlight covers. This one still got an original set on it. They're very, very hard to find because you normally need to look on the side of the interstate for them. Because the minute you drove the car at any speed, air would get underneath it and it would fly. I had a GT Mustang brand new in '85 that I drove back and forth to college. And I used to keep an extra set of headlight covers in the back because at least once a month, driving back and forth, one would pirouette over the top of the car. Then later, that was GTS or one of the other companies came out with the ones that have the little plastic pieces that these fold and pop in, and you know, they don't come out.
The cars themselves, mechanically, there wasn't a whole lot of difference in them.
No, not at all. Let me pop the hood on this one and give you an idea. You got to remember that they weren't allowed to really change much. And Steve was a small company. They couldn't afford to offer their own warranty on different stuff. So under the hood, basically the only major change you could see was the chrome air cleaner lid with the Saleen Mustang decal on it.
Yeah.
Then they also added a Cal custom alarm system, which would tend to go off in the middle of the night, like we said. I never used any of them, but they all still work on all the cars. It's pretty amazing. And there was a little horn in there, but back in the day, you know, people actually stole cars like this.
Yeah, yeah, and this is, well, unique in of itself for Ford. This is a first-year roller cam
Correct.
block, last year carburetor. Now 5-speed cars only. I know that for the 85s. Now if it's an automatic, it was not a roller.
Right,
cam.
and it was like a
CFI.
2-barrel fuel injection
Yeah.
type setup that was quite a bit less horsepower.
Yeah, and I do know there were a couple of 85 Saleens produced as automatics. They're out there. But the big thing for these was that, you know, in the day, the computers coming back. Everybody loved these because they were a roller block with that carburetor, and a lot of them got swapped out because of all the emission stuff. But it's a big deal in, well, I know through the mid-90s because the computers were all elusive. People
Right.
were getting
Well, this
those
was
and
the
stuff.
last of the, you know, the muscle car type of carbureted vehicle that was very similar to the 60s and 70s cars.
Yeah.
And, you know, then all of a sudden they introduced, oh my God, fuel injection, we're never going to make any horsepower. Well, you know, you see what the cars are today.
Oh yeah, technology.
These are really unique. You got to remember when you're driving these cars that they do drive completely different than a fuel injected car. The only real disadvantage to these cars is when they sit for a long period of time, the gas will actually evaporate out of the carburetor, so it can take a little bit to get them going again. And carbureted cars run and drive great if you drive them consistently. It's when they sit like in our warehouse and you don't drive it but every couple of months that you can end up with some issues with the carburetor.
Yeah, but the thing is that all four of these,
They fired right up.
Fired
didn't they?
up. Now
It's a testament to how we keep the cars here.
Yep.
We have everything on a maintenance schedule, and if you noticed, each car had a little sheet with it that we know how fresh the gas is, we know the battery's charged, because even though these cars are investment cars, it's going to cost a lot of money if we keep these cars and just let them sit and don't do anything to them.
Well, they are all at one point driven.
Oh, yes.
You know, whether it be 100 miles or whether it be a few thousand miles, these have all have been driven. And when you start driving a car, you have to continue to drive it a little bit just to keep things going, to keep
But
the
they all
seals.
started, and that was
They
the
did.
key.
That was
Yeah.
the coolest thing to say. I mean, like you said, fuel had evaporated. It took a few turnovers, but man, they all fired up right at it.
But these cars are definitely neat. Some of the different things you can see, we'll put the hood back down on this one, is that like the interior of this car and the interior of this car, it's a GT interior. So you could get them with both a GT interior or an LX interior. That car's got an LX interior, and so does that one. And I personally think the GT interior looks better and it's more comfortable.
It is more comfortable.
And it's easier to find a replacement seat that looks nicer. I had a heck of a time. I've got one of my other cars has that interior in it, and to try to find that seat, because it's a very 85 regular LX 5 liter wasn't a common car. Everything were GTs.
Yeah, the dash is even different in that.
Right.
With, as far as
the dash pieces are different.
Yeah, because the GT looked like the aircraft, you know, rivets, and then
Exactly.
those had the little checkered patterns.
And then Saleen did some nice touches, like they had a 4-spoke steering wheel that was a real thick steering wheel that felt good in your hands. Saleen had his own shift knob, and probably the most revolutionary or the neatest, hardest to come by piece was he had a 170 Speedo that they had manufactured for this car with their own overlay. And a lot of these other parts, yeah, they could be sourced if you knew the right vendor, but that piece was a Saleen specific piece.
You're talking about things that have changed. What Saleen also did as far as changing, you have Bilstein.
Right, they did a Bilstein shock setup on all the early 85 cars, all the 85 cars.
Yeah, and then there's obviously springs and suspension. And I think it's going back to what we talked about with the motor. Most of what he did was handling characteristics.
Correct.
And then aero and then ergonomics, so that the cars were fun. Because if you got into the motor and you get into EPA and a lot of things at the time,
they were a small company. They didn't have the backing in order to start paying for motors. And you also have to realize back then the EPA wouldn't allow you to modify stuff. That the aftermarket was completely different than it is today. And in order to try to get a vehicle certified like an '89 SSC car, it was big money to do that.
There's definitely something special about these cars, and it being Saleen's first full year of production.
Correct.
And it being so many lasts and firsts. If you
have a Saleen Mustang collection, you have to have a pristine 85. It's just part of the whole deal. And the 85 cars are, like I said, are what got me into Saleen Mustangs. When I bought my car, there was a brand new Saleen Mustang on the showroom floor, and I walked in and I was just like, I gotta have that. My dad's like, no. Our deal was this, and I said, if you finance, I'll work, I'll make the payments. He's like, nope, we're paying cash for this thing. It's your car, you wreck it, you're done. Whatever you pay for the gas, you pay for the insurance. He really wasn't excited to have to come up with that much money. But anyway, yeah, these cars are really, really neat. Very, very, very collectible in original form. And I'd like to add 4 or 5 more to the collection if we could find them. They're just very hard to find.
There's only 140 of them made, and then you got what attrition plays into play. There's some things, there's not that many out there now.
No, it's very true. It's very true.
So, well, look, I'm floored that you had 6, and we couldn't get them all in the same shot.
No, we couldn't. It took long enough to do this.
But yeah, it did. But this really wanted to show you guys. There's 4 of them here, and it's really cool to see this. Thanks so much.
Yep, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mark, thank you for letting us be a part of this, and thank you for watching. Thank you so much for letting us.
Oh, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
It's awesome. How can people find you?
Probably the easiest and best way is through our Facebook page. We also have an Instagram page. And then if you want to go to our website, performanceautosport.com, my phone number is on all of those. Feel free to reach out. I can't always get back to everybody instantly. And we've had quite a few inquiries because of all the stuff that we've done, so it might take me a little bit of time, especially if we're doing something like this.
Right, which is fun. It's just great. But we're working on bringing stuff to you as far as collections. There's a lot of things you're not going to see. Also, what is it that you're capable of doing for people that have cars like this?
Well, Performance Autosport offers a wide range of services. We can also help with insurance companies. If you have a problem with an insurance appraisal, we can do appraisals. The other thing that we can do is help manage car collections, keep an eye on the market and everything else, and we're always looking to buy. So if there's something that you think that we might want that might look good on one of these racks, feel free to reach out. I'll buy 1 car, I'll buy 50 cars. It doesn't matter, just reach out to us.
Cool, awesome. And if you have a collection like this, we wouldn't mind coming to visit and maybe, bringing the cars forward. There's some rare stuff out there. We know there's more than just what's here, but there's a lot here. We're gonna have to come back for another trip. But check out the website, puristmotorsports.com. There's some content there, things about cars being restored, fixed up, stories. There's a lot of things that are going on. We're trying to bring to light as far as the restoration stories of these cars, because not everybody, me included, has such a beautiful collection of cars that don't need as much attention as, say, what I'm working on. But that's what's fun. It's always about restoration, driving them, enjoying them, and looking at them. Remember, whether you're driving them or restoring them, always enjoy them. Peace.